People engage in mental imagery when reading stories, and mental imagery is an important driver of absorption. It's been found that visualizing the story world will strengthen people's experience of absorption in a story. Okay, so like if people cannot construct the model in their head, or their attention is not held, they'll just lose interest and get confused or like switch off. So you have to really, when you're designing an audiobook, really be clear in your mind, like, what can I see in my mind? Like being a writer, my job is to basically create what I can see in my mind in this sound design, so that other people can see it in their mind, you know, and that is really the job of the writer, like to get what's in my head out and back in your head, you know. And I have written more about this, which we'll get to, but I didn't want to go on about it now because it's a brief talk. So yeah, moves things, add the mood, create a world, you know. We'll get to that in a minute, but like, I think Greg, I worked on this with you. You know, there's quite a lot of looking out of the window in this, is As Dusk Falls. Like a lot of stuff we couldn't see. It had to be done in sound, you know. What are they looking at? What are they hearing? You only know what they're looking at when you hear it and how far away it is and all that kind of stuff, you know, like you're trying to get in their head. That's what your job is. So I have put a few files on here. I was slightly felled by the fact that we only had mono online, because a lot of the stuff in Far Cry was binaural, very much mixed with headphones. And I have got those files on a web page, which I'll give you at the end if you want to go off and have a listen to them. But Foley in Far Cry, the reason I'd done a special thing about Foley was because it was so important in this audio drama. Like in terms of what we've talked about, like building a model, knowing where you are in a scene, like how close people are. Like when you think about a book, you know, you're constantly moving around a scene and your like mind is like this camera that's zooming in, and things suddenly, you know, come towards you, and you know, 1 minute you're walking through the door and then there's a cut and you're picking up the pencil, you know. It's kind of, you have to drive this kind of mind cinema. And Foley, basically we found that if all the characters just spoke to each other, even though the performances were fantastic and the actors were great and Adele had done an amazing job, if they weren't moving, it was just a bit flat, to be honest. If I didn't have time to do Foley in a scene, they were always the things that got back with revision saying, this scene, you know, needs to move more, it's a bit flat. So Foley was something which we used a lot to try to create the images of people. And going back to what I was talking about with Zabowski and gesture, you know, if you're a Foley artist, and some of you may be, you know that like gesture and mime and kind of this kind of idea that this character's quite, you know, moves in a certain way, and this character kind of, you know, is heavy or drunk or whatever, and like giving people bodies and moving them around in space became really important. So one character, her shoes were really important. It was like the only way of recognizing her. I think I've got a file here. Is this gonna work? So there's a rhythm to that I had to instruct completely from my imagination and around obviously the pacing of the dialogue that we had. So I have, you know, the script was so well put together, like it was very possible to see where the scriptwriter had put the characters in his mind. And I've named who that person is, and that person was the person who wrote the script for this is a movie director, and it really showed. It was really possible to create these scenes. This one, what did I put here? Drunk man. That was a drunk man falling off a stool. But again, it was like able. There it goes. That's the end of him. But I didn't have a Foley artist. You couldn't get a Foley artist to Foley this. There were no pictures, and the timing of the Foley was really, really, really important in terms of driving this kind of spatial model that I've been talking about for the listeners. People had to know what was going on and who was looking at who, and you know how close they were, and like whether you'd bring that character really close to the mic, you know, so you could literally hear their skin, because that brought them the proximity of that character right in front of you. You know, sometimes in this drama you are the character, you're in a first person point of view, and so all the Foley is kind of you, which is an interesting thing as well.